Welcome to this deep dive. And this one is tailored specifically for you, the dedicated teachers and leaders who are, navigating the complex, dynamic world of education in Bangladesh. We know you are constantly managing some really intense structural pressures, trying to ensure quality learning despite large class sizes, prepping students for those crucial high-stakes exams, and, well, doing it all with often quite limited resources.
It is. It's a profound professional challenge, absolutely. And that's really why our focus today is on providing a kind of structured path towards internal ownership and sustainable growth. We are here to unpack the BRIDGE framework. That stands for the Bangladesh Review for Improving Development of Growth in Education. It's a custom-designed, evidence-based self-review tool, and it's built specifically to help you improve your schools.
Okay, let's dig into this bridge framework then. The mission sounds great, connecting today's practice with tomorrow's success. But what is it exactly? Is this just another inspection framework dropping onto people's desks?
Yeah, good question. And what's really interesting here is that BRIDGE is explicitly designed not to be some kind of external inspection. No. It's meant as a continuous tool for growth and development. It demands honest self-reflection from the school team itself. It's really designed to, well, bridge the gap, as the name suggests, between where your school is right now and where your vision says it ought to be. The framework's whole underlying philosophy is based on humility, actually. The idea that no school is perfect. Accepting that truth and seeking evidence of both success and failure, that's the essential first step toward meaningful, lasting change.
Right. That sounds fantastic on paper. But, for a head teacher who's juggling operational crises almost every single day, how can we justify carving out time for structured self-review like this? How does Bridge actually address the reality of resource constraints?
That's a critical question, definitely. Look, lasting improvement only really happens when the locus of control shifts internally. External accountability, it's exhausting, right? Internal reflection, though, can be genuinely empowering. Bridge tries to maximize the impact of your limited time by being incredibly focused and, crucially, evidence-informed. It doesn't ask you to just do more activity. It asks you to assess whether your existing activities are really driving the best possible results.
So what are the sort of foundational principles, then? What guides this process?
Okay, there are basically 4 core beliefs underpinning it. First, it absolutely must be supportive, not judgmental. This is about learning and refining practice, not rating or ranking people or schools. Second, it is fundamentally evidence-informed, and this is crucial. It draws on international best practice, yes, but it's specifically adapted for the Bangladeshi context, and it leverages local research.
And we should pause on that local research bit. When the framework mentions BIED and CAMPE, why does that validation matter so much to someone listening?
Well, great point. Because we aren't relying solely on, say, Western models or frameworks that might not quite fit. BRAC, IEB, the BRAC Institute of Educational Development, and CAMPE, the Campaign for Popular Education. These are authoritative voices doing extensive relevant research right there in Bangladesh. Their findings provide that essential local context and nuance. It ensures the Bridge framework is grounded in your reality, not an imported one.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third principle, which, let's be honest, is often the hardest thing for busy leaders to achieve consistently. Evidence triangulation. I mean, many schools understandably rely heavily on exam pass rates because that data is, well, easy to quantify. But the framework says we need to look broader than that.
Absolutely. Evidence triangulation just means checking multiple sources to verify what you think you know. Think of it like checking a weather forecast, maybe. You don't just rely on the thermometer reading the exam result, perhaps. You also need to check the satellite data. Maybe that's your classroom observations, the radar, which could be pupil voice and feedback, and the wind speed, maybe attendance and behavior records. If those sources start telling different stories, you know your initial assumption might be incomplete.
That clarity really does help make the process feel more manageable. And the framework itself is structured across 8 key areas of school life, covering pretty much everything.
Yes, it's comprehensive. It covers areas like inclusion, curriculum and teaching, achievement itself, attendance and behavior, personal development and well-being, early years, post-16 provision, and critically, leadership. And for every single one of these clusters, you find a really consistent and helpful structure. There's the evidence review, basically explaining why this area is a priority. Then the active ingredients. These are the non-negotiables, the essential practices that really must be present. And finally, the self-evaluation questions, which are designed to guide your team's internal discussion and reflection.
Right. Now, we obviously won't have time to deep dive into all 8 areas today, so we've strategically picked out 2 that we think offer perhaps the highest leverage and maybe the most visible impact for leaders listening. That's leadership and achievement. Let's start with leadership. I mean, the culture you set as a leader really determines everything else, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And leadership section in Bridge appropriately starts with vision, values, and strategic direction. The framework really pushes leaders to ask, is your vision a living, breathing document that guides daily actions, or is it, just a slogan gathering dust on the wall somewhere?
But hold on, many leaders feel forced to prioritize compliance, external demands, exam results. How does Bridge help them ensure their vision balances those pressures with genuine broader development for students?
It explicitly demands that balance.
Hmm?
And interestingly, the evidence cited locally, from those BRAC, IED, and CAMPE studies we mentioned, it shows that a strong vision must explicitly balance academic achievement with wider personal and social development. It might feel counterintuitive, right? You might think focusing purely on passing exams is the best strategy under pressure. But the research actually shows that when leaders articulate values like integrity or inclusion or collaboration alongside academic goals, teacher motivation and student belonging significantly improve.
Wait, really? So focusing on those sort of ethical and social values actually leads to better buy-in and belonging across the school. That's quite a powerful finding.
It is. And the key active ingredient here, the thing that makes it real, is coherence between vision and practice. It's simple, really. If your stated core value is, say, student voice and empowerment, but the head teacher only ever meets with parents and never actively seeks feedback from the pupils themselves, well, that's a coherence failure. The daily routines, the small interactions, they must visibly reflect the stated values.
Okay, so moving from the big picture vision to implementation, naturally hand in hand with that is the use of evidence and data. Now, for many issues, let's be honest, data often just feels like administration, filling out a spreadsheet for the next meeting. Bridge calls the better approach disciplined curiosity. Why is that distinction so important?
Because data used purely for compliance tends to make people defensive. It feels like judgment. Data used with disciplined curiosity, however, is used for learning and improvement. So leaders have to ensure there is absolute clarity of purpose. Data must support improvement, like helping a specific student or a group of students close a specific learning gap. It shouldn't merely be used to rank individuals or compare schools in a simplistic way.
But thinking practically, for a head teacher maybe juggling classes of 100 pupils, where does the time for something like collaborative interpretation of data actually come from? It sounds a bit like a luxury.
It might sound like one, but it's arguably an efficiency measure in the long run. If teachers interpret data entirely on their own, in isolation, they tend to make siloed decisions. Collaborative interpretation means leaders and teachers actually sit down and discuss trends together. This builds professional trust, sure, but it also ensures everyone understands why a certain intervention might be needed, leading to more buy-in. And this leads directly to research-informed decision-making, where you're using credible studies and evidence, not just gut feeling or habit, to guide your strategy for improvement.
And Bridge makes sure this responsibility isn't just sitting entirely on the principal's shoulders, right? It talks about spreading the load.
Precisely. Improvement is always most effective when it includes middle leadership and distributed responsibility. Your subject leads, your coordinators, they must be empowered. Empowered with clarity about their role, the right training, and crucially, the trust to lead within their specific areas. The framework actually gives explicit guidance on how to train these middle leaders so they can effectively analyze data and drive change locally right within their own departments or year groups.
Okay, so let's assume the leader has set that clear strategic direction. They've empowered their middle leaders effectively. Where do we then see the tangible results of that positive culture shift? And that brings us nicely to our second deep dive area, achievement and progression. Especially thinking about post-16, achievement is so often just measured by that final HSC or A-level result. Bridge argues for a much broader definition, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. Achievement, in the Bridge sense, is about how effectively learners actually progress over time, and just as importantly, how the curriculum genuinely impacts their future lives and opportunities. We need fair, transparent tracking systems to ensure students are genuinely ready for their next step, whether that's higher education, maybe TVET, or going straight into employment.
So, how does the framework suggest schools track that kind of true growth, especially when students might enter with really widely varying academic backgrounds?
Well, it starts with defining clear baseline and starting points. Using things like the SSC or IGCSE results, yes, but maybe combined with some short entry diagnostics to get a richer picture and set fair, ambitious targets for each student. And then, crucially, we need progress measures that value growth. These should be simple, transparent indicators, maybe monthly module checks, or hitting key curriculum milestones, things that show movement over time. Just waiting for that final high-stakes result for the end is often far too late to intervene effectively. Seeing frequent, visible growth that really boosts student motivation too.
And I'm guessing this feeds directly back into the teaching and learning cycles.
Yes, absolutely. We need strong assessment for learning cycles. That means frequent, probably low-stakes checks that directly inform reteaching cycles. This isn't just about recording a score in a mark book. It's about identifying who needs extra help right now and then adjusting the instruction immediately to close that gap before it widens significantly. Being responsive like that is absolutely key.
But ultimate achievement isn't solely about the academic marks, is it? It's about readiness for life beyond school, which brings us to careers, guidance, and employability skills.
Yes, and for a leader in Bangladesh, this section is absolutely vital. The guidance provided to students must be truly impartial, steering them towards the right path for them, not just the path that might look best for the school's statistics. And critically, it often needs to be bilingual, available clearly in both Bangla and English, because families are so often the key decision makers, and they need to fully understand the implications of different pathways, HE, TVET, apprenticeships, jobs.
What sort of practical skills should the school be focusing on embedding here?
The Bridge framework really stresses the development of an explicit employability curriculum. This means covering those practical skills that employers consistently say they value. Things like effective CV writing, how to handle interviews well, essential digital literacy, problem-solving skills. These need to be actively taught, not just sort of hoped for as a byproduct of academic study.
And finally, I suppose making those future pathways feel less abstract and more real.
Exactly that. The framework stresses the importance of real encounters with HE and employers. Things like talks from university admissions tutors, visits to workplaces, panels featuring successful alumni. These experiences make the world outside the school walls feel tangible, reachable. They significantly increase student confidence and their ability to successfully make that often daunting transition, whether it's to university, TVET, technical and vocational education and training, or directly into employment.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? The Bridge framework, fundamentally, has given you a structured, collaborative, and evidence-rich lens. A way to identify what is truly working in your school and then decide on the highest leverage next steps, all within your unique school context here in Bangladesh.
Yeah, we've asked you today, through this framework, to look honestly at your leadership culture, your use of evidence, and your tracking of achievement. But please remember, the framework is broad. It covers those 8 essential areas. You absolutely don't have to tackle everything at once. The advice is usually, start small. Gather your evidence carefully, agree as a team on maybe just 2 or 3 high-leverage actions in the area where you collectively see the biggest need right now. Maybe that's inclusion for you, or perhaps attendance and behavior, or maybe curriculum and teaching needs the focus first.
It's really about maximizing your impact, isn't it, despite those very real constraints on time and resources?
Precisely. And perhaps here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with today, something prompted directly by the Bridge framework's philosophy. Bridge demands that leaders constantly ask themselves and their teams, how will we actually know if this change is genuinely helping our pupils? Where's the evidence in their attendance, their engagement, their confidence, and ultimately, their outcomes? Focus intensely on gathering that concrete evidence of impact, not just on the activity that made everyone busy. That's the real challenge and the real prize.